everybody. Welcome. Um, is it sharing now? I know I live out in the country and I have a delay sometime. My internet's not the best. If someone could not, they can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Good. Hi, my name is Dana Berryman. I'm with NAMI Ohio Parent Advocacy Connection, and I'm just here to talk about family advocacy, parent advocacy. So we're just going to talk about advocacy in general. Maybe. Okay, so what we're going to kind of talk about today is why do we need family advocates? What is an advocate? What does an advocate do? What are some of the barriers families and parents face? And how do we help remove those barriers to help parents and families become advocates? How do we support advocacy? And do we have any questions? Okay, so why do we want family and parent advocates, right? Oftentimes when people hear that an advocate's coming or a family's an advocate, everybody's defenses kind of go up. We think we have this troublemaker coming into a meeting or into a situation that's going to really stir the pot. We're trying to get away from that negative connotation, right? So when I'm talking to a parent and I'm talking to them about advocacy and why they want to become an advocate for their parents or for their children, parents and family are their child's first and best advocate, right? We're there for the long haul and we want improved outcomes. Who knows your child best than the parent? Who lives with that child, who lives in that situation, who lives in that environment? Parents do. They know what works for their families. They know what works for their kids, and they have the best intentions. They're in it for the long haul. They're not a short-term help or support. Parents influence their children's attitudes about learning and support, right? So if we can have a parent come in with a good attitude, a positive attitude, we can help influence that child's attitude. We can increase family and parent participation with advocacy. If a family member feels valued and feels like their voice and their input's being valued, they're going to continue in that process. And again, every parent deserves to be heard. Oftentimes when we come to the table, everybody's focused on the child, and that's absolutely right? That's what everybody else's job is there. But sometimes it's hard for the parent to find their voice and have their side be heard and truly listened to. So when we're talking about an advocate, again, a lot of negative connotation comes up with when we're having this discussion. People think that an advocate is someone that's going to come in and scream and yell and start a lot of problems or start a lot of conflict. So we want to kind of change that. So when I'm talking to a family, when we talk about an advocate, Merriam-Webster says an advocate is just one who pleads the cause of another, right? We're just here to speak up about your concern. That's all we want you to do. Just talk about what your concerns, have a voice, find your voice, and just talk about stuff. You don't need to yell. You don't need to be rude or condescending, right? We just need to open up those lines of communication. So when we're talking about an advocate, a family advocate, a parent advocate, that's all we're talking about is someone that's just going to speak up about your concerns, right? So when we're talking about a parent advocate, we just need to speak up about that child, right? What's going on in that family? What are your concerns? So we're going to talk about barriers, right? Help families identify barriers and overcome them when we're talking about advocacy. So one of the main things when I'm talking with parents is just promoting that safe environment, right? Oftentimes families come in and they might feel judged or they might feel at a disadvantage. They don't understand the language. They don't understand the terms that are being used. They don't understand, what the professionals are talking about, or maybe the professionals aren't including them, the parents feel. So we just need to help promote that safe environment where parents can feel comfortable having that voice, talking about their things. So what we often do is we help parents share that concern, right? How do you share that concern? What are your concerns? Oftentimes I hear people tell parents, don't show emotion, right? I don't agree with that, right? I want parents to be able to show their emotions. We're human, right? But we need to teach parents, and we model for parents, how can you do that respectfully, right? It's okay to be angry, but how do you voice that anger properly? It's okay to be sad or upset. How do you voice that appropriately, right? Emotions are okay. We are human. It's okay to have emotions, especially when we're talking about our kiddos and our loved ones, right? So it's okay to have emotions, but how can we help express those appropriately? Sometimes parents think when we're talking about advocacy, they don't want to overstep, right? We kind of get into that parent journey when we become system involved, that the system's going to take care of our kids and make the best decisions. And we don't want to overstep the professional or the team's boundaries. So we're just trying to help parents understand it's not overstepping, expressing a concern. If something's not going to work or it's not working or you have questions, questioning a professional is not overstepping those boundaries, right? Just have a question, ask it. Everybody's there to do what they think is best. So ask them for clarification. And then, well, another thing we really want to work with our parents and our families is not being disrespectful, right? Asking a question is not being disrespectful. So how can we help model and prepare parents to ask questions without being disrespectful or having a voice without being disrespectful? So when we're working with parents, how do we support advocacy, right? So with PAC, we help encourage, educate, equip, and empower parents. So how do we do that? We often sit with our parents and we just ask them questions. Tell us about your story. Tell us about your concerns. Oftentimes I hear from providers, well, the family's being non-compliant, or we tried this and it didn't work, or we've tried that and it didn't work. So when we're talking to parents, it's oftentimes getting to the root causes of why those things aren't working for their family or their situation, or how they feel about them, right? So we just ask a lot of questions when we're working with parents. And then we help the parents to write down your thoughts, right? Because it's really easy when we're talking to have a lot of thoughts go through our head, but really to write down, pinpoint those thoughts. What do you want to express? How do you want to express that? And then we sit with parents and help them organize your thoughts. What do we need to talk about at this meeting? What do you need to talk about now? What do we need to address later? Just how do you organize those thoughts? And then we help parents stay on track, right? So when those emotions do start to boil up, how can you rein those emotions in and stay on track? And how do you help that to be a productive meeting or have productive advocacy? And then we just encourage parents to keep speaking up, right? We all know that sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the voice. So sometimes, how do you just keep speaking up? Keep encouraging parents to maintain in that process, engage in those situations. All right, so I went through that extremely fast. So again, we're just here to help educate and empower and equip parents to find their own voices, to be comfortable in advocating for their kids, understanding that they are their best voice for their child and their family, and that it's important that they engage and they speak up. Is there any questions?
Dana, if folks listening in today want to find a parent advocate near them, what are some steps they might want to take?
There's a lot of advocates groups around the state. Of course, you can contact NAMI Ohio and look into their parent advocacy connections. There's private groups. There's some other advocacy groups going around the state. A good place to look is your Children and Family First councils. They tend to have connections depending on what county or region you're in. Sometimes your school district might have an educational advocate that can help navigate that process or know of somebody that might be able to assist you in that process. And I just really encourage parents, when you're looking for an advocate or you're seeking out to become an advocate yourself, really look at what you want them to accomplish, right? Or do you want them to accomplish it for you? Sometimes people call, especially they want me to come in and fight their battles for them. Well, the way our program is set up is we do not fight your battles for you. I'm going to help educate and equip and empower you to be able to fight those battles and advocate for your child and yourself, because I'm a short-term support. I want to give you the tools to be able to advocate for your child and your situation for the long term, right? Because you're in this for the long haul. I'm just a short-term support. So I really encourage families, when you're looking for an advocate or you're seeking out advocacy, really look at what your purpose is. Do you want them to come in and fix one situation and get that under control, or do you want to be able to gain the tools and the knowledge to be able to advocate for yourself? And again, advocacy is just that empowerment, speaking up.
We had a question in the chat box, and I think it's a great question. So is there a difference between parent advocacy and peer support or parent peer support?
Right. In my opinion, this is my opinion, I say yes, right? Because oftentimes that parent advocate is oftentimes going to come in and speak on behalf of the parent. They're going to be the parent's voice. When we're talking about parent peer support, how I kind of divide that in my mind is a parent peer supporter is going to help the parent find their voice. They're going to help support the parent. They're not necessarily going to speak on behalf of the parent all the time, and they're not going to come in and fight that battle for the parent, but they're going to help the parent identify the tools to do that. For example, when we're talking about an educational advocate, you're going to potentially probably pay somebody to come in and do a lot of the speaking, talk a lot of the school, set up those meetings, write those letters, right? When you're hiring an educational advocate to help get something done in the special education realm. When you're talking to a parent peer supporter, they're going to help, educate you on the system, educate you on what your choices are, and support you on your choices you make. They're not going to come in and fight those battles for you. So in my mind, yes, there is a difference on parent peer support and parent advocacy. I don't know if that's appropriate.
No, that's fine. And I think I'm going to add a little to that. I think that as we move forward in the state and expand our definition of peer support, our current definition really is codified at the state level in terms of adult peer support. It doesn't have a youth peer support definition or a parent peer support definition in it yet, but I think they're moving in that direction very quickly. So we'll have more and more clarification on those words, those terms, et cetera, and hopefully certainly much more availability as we move forward.